Well, hello. Okay, so it is late, almost 11 p.m., which so if I look tired, that's why. Normally I don't record videos in the evening. However, um, well, not that I don't, I just normally don't work this late anymore. But I just had something that was kind of on my heart and was feeling a nudge to speak about it. And I started to try to like type out a piece of content and it just wasn't coming because I knew that it was something I needed to actually just let myself speak about. So, um, drum roll, right? Get to the point. But really, it's something that I've touched on a bit, here and there, but I haven't really gone to the depths of talking about, a lot of my journey the last couple of years. And, I guess it goes back before a couple of years, but, like many people, followed the rules when it came to business and online business. I really kind of started delving more into this space in 2019. I had started my event planning business. Prior to that, I had done consulting before that as well, and was still doing some consulting work, or had kind of restarted up doing some consulting work in 2019. Um, but really, mid 2019, I started to delve more into the online business space because um, I had been laid off from my job, and I knew that I just didn't want to go back to working. And this had been a long time coming. I'd had businesses for a while and like gone back to work, not wanted to, blah, blah, blah. Um, but anyway, that's not really important. The thing, I guess, the point is, I look back at where I started, and like many people, we evolve in our businesses, we grow personally. I'm definitely not the person that I was. I mean, I am the same person at my core, but I've evolved so much since then, and grown so much. But when I look back to the things that really lit me up in the beginning, that I was so excited to do, to talk about. Um, it really was centered around this concept of, really like enjoying your life, having an amazing life, living the life you want now instead of waiting until you're too old to actually enjoy it. And business coaching kind of came online just because I had that experience with starting businesses. And I had a background in sales, marketing, business operations. Uh, and oops, sorry. Popping up here some stuff, and I don't have my glasses on, so I can't actually read what's popping up on my screen right now. Excuse me. Um, so working on not wearing my glasses all the time. So anyway, I guess the point is that, I've evolved in the things that I talk about. And a couple of years ago, I started really feeling like I don't necessarily feel really attached to a lot of the things that I was talking about anymore. I had started, when I first started working with a high ticket coach for the first time, and where I had paid thousands of dollars to get support. That was really what pulled me like more into this space, and like doing things in a certain way with my marketing, my sales. And I remember, that coach, and I think she's a lovely person still, and there's a lot of things that I still carry with me from that. But I remember, the conversation, which I actually have talked about recently, about needing to focus on certain things in my business, and specifically business, money, health, relationships, like those core things. And that's what I needed to focus on. So we decided, meaning she suggested that I become a business coach instead of a mindset and or life coach. Or life purpose coach was actually kind of the first certification, the specialization that I had gone into in the coaching space. Um, and it made sense, and it still to a point does make sense because there are those key areas that people really care about. But at first it was okay, help people, leave their 9 to 5s and like live a life they love. And it felt a little bit more aligned. But as I got more and more into my business, it started to go more into, focusing on making money and marketing and following a lot of the trends, and I was doing these things myself, and I was teaching other people to do, like a lot of people were doing this. But really, like at my core, I wanted to help people have a great life. I wanted to help them manifest things. I wanted to help them, fulfill their purpose and really understand what it is that they wanted to do with their lives and to achieve those things. And as I got further into business, I started to move away from that. And I actually remember another coach, again, I'm not bashing them because these are all brilliant women. And I think it happens all the time. Like these brilliant people, myself included, we get so wrapped up in this world and the right way to do things and teaching that and telling me people didn't care about, seeing about your life. And I can understand, on one aspect, yes, people don't care about me showing you what I ate for dinner and talking about needless shit, but like talking about travel and the fact that we were full-time digital nomads at one point and like how I was living the life of my dreams ultimately, and being told that that didn't really matter and people didn't care. Um, so I had that in my head, and it was just like, okay, talk about making money, talk about this, talk about that, talk about things that people care about. And the more and more I got into that, the more and more sterile the things that I was talking about felt. The less lit up I was about my business, like behind the scenes when I was working with clients and we weren't necessarily just focusing on those things. I was so lit up and I was having so much fun, and I would have conversations with people, potential clients. Some of them I didn't even know that they were potential clients when I was having those conversations, and I would get really excited about talking about things and talking about the overlap between health and relationships and money and all of the things, when it comes to success, because I do believe in an integrative approach to success, and you have to address all areas. And that's where like talking about those key things that one coach told me in the beginning, like it makes sense. But the way that I was doing it outwardly didn't actually align with what I gave a shit about anymore. And I started to really lose myself, lose my identity in. I started to not actually recognize who I was becoming. And I remember my husband actually on multiple occasions, like kind of calling me on some of these things. And I remember him saying, like, sometimes when I was like recording a video or, something, or like doing a voice to text thing to write content. And he's like, you sound like angry almost. And it wasn't anger, but it was like I was trying to be the authority, but it was also that I wasn't excited. I thought I was doing the things I was supposed to say to make myself look good, to be the authority, and I was being very direct in many ways, and my content was very good in many ways. Um, but it was no longer really me. Like, yes, it was me, and I was saying the things, and a lot of those things, yes, I truly believed it. And there are things I would say to my clients directly, but the focus of my marketing, of the conversations that I was having, had moved so far away from the core of what I actually wanted to do when I started, that I started to not recognize myself in my business anymore, and it just became, in large part about chasing the next goal, chasing money, investing in the next mentor. And don't get me wrong, obviously, like I am a mentor to people, and I run retreats, I run group programs, I coach people. And I think it's really great and really important work that I do and that many of us do. But it was just like, I just kept feeling like I needed to fix myself, that I needed to invest in something else so that I could be good enough and so that I could make money and so that I could attract the right people, the people that would pay me the most money. Um, and the focus just, it was no longer about living life in my happy place or helping people live life in their happy place, which was the original tagline, or letting their freak flag fly, was another tagline, another, a couple of years later in my business. And all of that coming back to, really stepping into your own power, your own genius. And I do talk about a lot of these things, but not, you know, until recently, I wasn't talking about it from the perspectives a lot of times that I really truly wanted to. It was more from the perspectives of what I thought I needed to do and say in order to be liked, in order to be an authority, in order to get it right. And sometimes even recording a video like this, I would stop myself because I just I would have those things like looping in my brain, those stories, those statements, those random little things that coaches or mentors said, that other people said, that these marketing experts said, the people that are making all this money said. And I had started to like make myself wrong because I'm like some of the things I didn't believe in. I'm like, well, I must be wrong, right? Because they're more successful than me. They must know better than me. But the truth is you always know better than everybody else what's right for you. And sometimes, yes, we can be hiding parts of ourselves. Sometimes, we aren't acting or saying or doing things out of fear, and that's different. But in large part, also the fear can be the same because that fear for me was like, I'm gonna get it wrong. What are people gonna think of me? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work? What if I put all this time, all this money, all this effort in, and then it doesn't work. So I have to keep going with the right way that other people have been successful with, to prove myself to my husband, to my family, to my audience, to my clients, to myself. And I really started to lose myself. And, I started to experience more cracks in my relationship. And, one other thing, which I'll be recording more videos on, was, you know, we had paid back in, so that 2021, I think paid off like over 60,000 dollars of debt in like 6 months, 5 months actually, which I couldn't have fathomed doing like years before, like even a few years before that, being able to do that. And then, getting myself honestly after that back in debt. I was making more money than I'd ever made, but yet I was spending more than I'd ever made as well. And I kept justifying it as like I just have to do this to get to the next level. Again, because I was trying to fit the mold of what I thought I was supposed to do and be to be successful. Um, and outwardly to a lot of people, I was, and on paper, I was. And, I will say that the last couple of years have been a really big coming home to myself. And, um, at one point, the money actually started to really slow down. And I think, it was myself putting up walls because I didn't want to attract people for the same reasons anymore. I didn't want to talk about the same things. And I was really struggling internally with how to show up, what to talk about, who to be, so that I would still make money, so I would still be successful, while also being true to myself. And that's been a bit of an internal battle. And I'm getting a little emotional, which I wasn't necessarily expecting to, but because it's taken me a while. And I just got back from Bali, and like it does when you go there. I spent a month there this time. Again, last time it was also a month. And it was just another like peeling back the layers of really like really having to take a hard look at myself. And I was not, my heart wasn't in a lot of the things that I was promoting, that I was selling, that I was talking about. And it was kind of this identity crisis, even as I was running like this free container. You can tell if you go back and listen to some of the recordings, like the things that I was really passionate about, and then the things where I was talking from just this narrative of what I was supposed to say, and again, not that those things aren't important, some of the things that I talk about and that I've learned and that I teach, but it isn't what I wanted to be known for, and it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I started to be really bored, honestly, by some of the things that I was saying, and I will say that I never really truly resonated with the term burnout, even though I started talking about it because someone said, "Oh, what you're describing, the things that you talk about, which is largely the things that I'm talking about now with clients." It's burnout, right? And it's just overworking and this and that. And that's not actually what it's really about. It's not about overworking. And it's taken me a long time to actually realize that, like, yes, you overwork because of all of the things that I was just talking about in myself, but you lose yourself thinking that you have to fit a certain mold, a certain role, that you've had this success and now you have to keep it going and you have to keep up this facade. But the truth is, you fucking don't. And when you come back home to yourself, when you're true to yourself, that's when business actually is easy. And I've had this proof, honestly, over the years, so many times over and over. And then when it has dipped down is when I started to doubt this, when I doubted myself, when I doubted that path. And For years, I've helped women to, not just women, actually men as well, but more women, to really come back and discover themselves, their soul, their gifts, to anchor into their genius, their own individual power, and to live a life unfiltered. But it's not just about your content and your messaging. It's about being all of you. It's about living the life you want. It's about having a fucking business that you love, not just that makes money, because you can make money, but you can be unhappy. And I've experienced that myself, and I have had so many clients do the same. And, it felt almost ungrateful to say that, because again, I love my clients and I love a lot of the work that I was doing, but I didn't necessarily love who I had become, or who I was being outwardly. Um, in order to get more clients, in order to, keep up the image that I had created for myself. And, going into 2026, like that's not how I want to be. And, it really has been a coming back home to myself and being true to myself and to what it is that I teach. I talk a lot about being the living, breathing embodiment of your beliefs, of the things that you teach. And I have to admit, like, where I wasn't doing that myself. And, I thought I was. But again, I had some realizations here in the last, month or so that even made, again, where you think that you're doing all of the things, right? But it made it clear to me where I was still hiding, where I still wasn't being 100% unfiltered and true to myself. So I just wanted to come on and record this because I think it's an important message to share, because I think that so many of you maybe don't identify with the concept of burnout, or maybe you hear it, but it's just like that's not really the thing. But where you feel like you have the success on paper, and for some, maybe you don't yet, but when I'm talking, those that I'm really talking to, you probably have experienced that, like me, right? And I made more money than I ever made in my career. And to, feel ungrateful for that, or to feel like, well, that's not good enough. It felt wrong in a way, but the thing is you're not meant to be unhappy. The whole reason that I left my career, back in 2016, the first time I did end up going back for a little stint there in 2017. But the reason I left in the first place is because I wanted to have a life that I loved. I wanted to, yes, have a business that supported that I loved as well. And at my core, that's what I still want. And that's what I want to help other people to create for themselves. So whether that's starting a business, whether that's moving to a different country, whether it's, just being able to express yourself in your relationships, in your business, in your content, even, yes, too. But it's about allowing yourself to be all of you, to express yourself, to show up in your business and actually be paid for being you. And that's what it's about. So if this is resonating with you, I mean, I would still love to have a conversation. So this is absolutely the direction I'm going. And it's not just about your business, but it's about manifesting a fucking life and business that you love, and having those things alongside each other and coming back home to you. And the Unfiltered Ascension Masterminds and retreats are things that I'm both running. I have a mastermind group starting in January, and already have a couple of retreats lined up for 2026, including one, possibly two retreats in Bali next year. So, and I do like smaller groups. So if that's something that interests you, please reach out. Let's have a conversation. You can send me a message directly over on Facebook, and this will be on YouTube. So the link should be in the description below. And I look forward to that. But either way, whether we work together or not, I hope this message has resonated for you and maybe made a difference and allowed you to reflect on yourself and your own journey. And are you actually being unfiltered? Are you actually being all of you? Are you fucking happy with who you are, with how you're running things? And is this how you want it to go long term? Because if not, it's time to take that step back and actually really decide what the fuck that is, and lead with your soul instead of your mind. Thank you so much. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, all of the things, and we will talk to you soon.